Snowy peaks and open skies, northern winds whisper goodbyes. Dreams take root where the maples grow, a land of promise where rivers flow. Welcome to the north, where the light shines so bright, chasing every dream beneath the stars tonight. Every step you take, a journey to belong, building futures here where hearts grow strong. Lakes like mirrors, reflecting pride, from the Rockies to the ocean tide. Voices mingle in a tapestry, a world united.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another Canada Immigration Live Q&A. How are you doing, Alicia?
I'm doing all right, Mark. It's like all 4 seasons in 24 hours in Calgary. It was 8 degrees and sunny, and I actually saw robins for the first time in a year. They've come back, and there were some seagulls. It was beautiful, and then another snowstorm came in, but it actually started as a rainstorm. Like there was thunder, and it started raining, and then it just, like, you know, in those cartoons where it just goes
Yep.
thump, and then all the snow falls down.
Yeah,
That's kind of what it was like, and it's
that
still
was it.
snowing right now.
Well, when you said that, I just looked out the window, and sure enough, there are snowflakes drifting down. Usually it hits Calgary first, and then it comes down to Lethbridge, where I'm at. So when Igor and Alicia are complaining about, a late spring snowstorm, I know it's coming, so I got time to prepare. So that's awesome. All right. Well, welcome, everybody. It's great to have everyone back. There is, as always, no shortage of changes. We are seeing the impact of the annual levels plans and the reduction in allocations for nominations. We're seeing those affecting the various provinces and their PNP programs all the time. We've just seen an announcement that came through on the 27th that the Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program, and we're referring to March the 27th, 2025, is undergoing some pretty radical changes, and all with a view to trying to figure out a way to equitably, distribute these nominations. And so we'll have more information on that. But Alicia, what are your thoughts on another round of changes?
Yeah, I mean, well, the other thing that I want to mention, because if anybody was stuck in the vortex of trying to apply on March 31st for the caregiver
Oh,
positions,
what a gong show.
it was a complete
Mhm.
gong show. We stayed a very far away from that debacle, so I don't
Yep.
think it affected any of our clients because we we just didn't wade into that war because,
No.
oh my goodness, it was first past the post, it was the system crashing, it was application pages not loading, it was pulling out your hair kind of material. So really, somebody asked me on a consult, "Oh, can I apply for this caregiver position?" I'm like, "No, it's already gone. It's
Yeah.
already full. It's already oversubscribed
Yeah.
right away."
And this is not the first rodeo, okay, that the government has waded into or hopped on the bull or whatever you want to reference you want to use. This is not the first time that they have done this. And it's not that our firm shies away from those things because we most definitely don't. The first feeding frenzy or Hunger Games, equivalent application process that I recall was the TR to PR pathway. And in that case, we knew it was coming, prepared a course to help people navigate their way through. And I think we helped 550 or more people go through. And then the next was the H-1B work permit process that was also a first in, kind of a process race to file. But there's been parent-grandparent in that situation, Alicia. There's been a whole host of applications that they've just opened up, and then whoever gets in first wins. The fastest typer wins, kind of thing. Those with smaller families, they don't have as many dependents to add in. They're going to get through first. So, sometimes I think the government they just say, look, there's going to be no winner with this situation, and so we're just going to do it just to get it done and say we've done it, and be damned with whatever happens. And it's unfortunate because it creates a lot of stress and anxiety and just a lot of damage to individuals, and there's a significant element of unfairness to it.
So
All right.
I hope you were not stuck in the vortex on March
Yeah.
31st, but if you didn't get your application in, they're gone.
Yes. All right, we've got Calf who's tuning in, and if this is your first time, give us a shout out. We'll pull it up and we'll give you one back. So JM here is over in Taiwan watching. That's pretty good. I wonder what time it is in Taiwan right now. They're ahead of us, whatever it is. So maybe it's late evening or something today. I don't know, or maybe I'm backwards. Oh, I don't know. Time zones are all over the map. I guess I could ask a friend, ChatGPT, what time it is in Taiwan, or Calf, just let us know and I'll post it. Okay, let's see who else we've got here. Juan, it says, hey, Mark and Alicia, happy April 2nd, full of snow. I was seriously contemplating doing an April 1st episode here on the channel and having lots of fun because, of course, it was April Fool's Day. But oh my goodness, Alicia, the last almost week, I have been sick as a dog. And so I contemplated doing it. And then I thought, you know what? No, I've got a busy day as it is. And really, my calendar was pretty full yesterday because I'd taken Thursday and Friday off. And I just did not have the bandwidth to do it. But maybe next year, if things are a little bit less insane. So hopefully none of you were duped into it. I think one of my favorites, that I saw was a report that Edmonton had been granted the next NBA basketball team and that there would be an NBA team in Edmonton. I thought, wow, that's a good one. And my brother, he always has good things to say on April Fools, and he got my mother really good. He said that he had gotten an accident with his truck, and so he had to buy a new one. And he's this big monster truck with these massive tires. He had a picture of it and everything. And my mom was like, is that a really good use of your money? It was pretty fun. So those things are always, a lot of fun. I don't know, Alicia, how many other countries do this on April 1st? Like Canada and the US for sure, but are there other countries? You guys let us know. Do you guys do April Fools and play jokes on your friends and try to trick them and, make them look like a fool for believing you?
It's fun because my kids went to French immersion. I went to French immersion as well. And so we call it poisson d'avril. And so we have these little fish. And so people cut out little paper fish and they try to stick it on the teacher's back or one of their classmates without the classmates realizing. So they go to give them a pat on the back, right? And they stick that little fish and then they'll say poisson d'avril, right? So yeah.
Fun. All right. There you go. So it's like the April fish? Is that
Yeah, like
what's
you'll
the
see how many fish
translation?
stuck to your back, basically.
Oh, that's fun. That's awesome. Okay, Mashiko says here, good morning. Hope you all filled up your gas tanks. Okay. I'm not sure what is that the whole tariff thing and gas prices going up. I thought that if PM Carney and they were removing the carbon tax, that the gas prices would go down. So
Well, they went
is
down
that why?
yesterday, but I guess today's another day, so we'll have to
Well,
see what
maybe.
happens 4
Yeah,
o'clock
maybe they're
Eastern.
excited about it is a good morning, Mashiko says here. So that's awesome. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Yeah, make sure that you guys, if you are tuning in for the first time, give us a shout out. Let's see here. Tafazi says, hey, Mark and Alicia, good morning, sir. Food packing category visa come in Canada. I wanted. Okay. Well, it's going to be tough, Tafazi. Search for a job. If an employer is out there looking to hire someone with food packing experience and it fits and there's no Canadian to do the job, then you could potentially get extended an offer. So thanks for tuning in. Okay. Miss P says, learning a lot from you guys, watching from the Philippines, 12:10 a.m. here. Okay, great. Now we're getting somewhere. Cyber Ninja says, good day. Will there be an express entry draw today? Oh, you know what that means, Alicia. Boom. Will there be? What do
Well,
you
here's the
think?
thing. Here's the thing, Cyber Ninja. I think immigration has got to clear out all of their system in Express Entry and all of the profiles that actually had claimed arranged employment points because it's been taking them a while to switch over. And in addition to them taking a while to switch over, the fact that they had the whole home care provider program that went on the 31st crashed their system. And so a whole bunch of people couldn't put in study permit applications.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I guess no. My guess is they need another little bit of time to sort things out before they do a draw, because I don't think all systems are quite go yet.
No, they're most definitely not. Yeah, I agree with you, Alicia. Okay, Calf says it's 12 midnight. Oh, that I know what you're gonna get. You're gonna get one of these. Yeah. Tuning in so late. Great to have you here. We've got Vijay, who says first time joining the live. Good morning, Mark and Alicia from Edmonton. There you go. Well, hey, if some of you up there were probably pretty excited to hear an NBA team was coming to Edmonton. All right. And unfortunately, you jerks up there took out my Flames the other day, which really, oh man, dry-sidle. Anyways, I'm still hoping we can make the playoffs, but it's not looking super, super chipper, given the fact we lost again yesterday in Utah. Anyways. All right. Well, hey, at least I'll be able to enjoy my summer and I won't have to be too stressed in the spring, with whether or not the Flames are going to make the playoffs and having my whole life focused around watching the playoffs. I can just enjoy the beautiful spring and the buds coming on the trees and the leaves and the birds. And, there are positives. Yes. All right. John says 11 a.m. CRS mission approved. I don't know what you mean by that, John. Here, I'll give you one of these. Okay. All right. Let's hit, Kumar here says, hey, Mark and Alicia watching live from Quebec. That's great. We've got Hardy, first time on the Q&A. We'll give some applause for Hardy here as well. VJ says, LOL, in and out coming to Edmonton. Oh, there you go. The burger joint. That's nice. You got one of those. Hey, what's the difference? NBA franchise, In-N-Out Burger. Hey, it's all good. It's all good. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Spider-Man's back in the house. Saying hi from Montreal as usual. Welcome. Great to have you here. Let's see. Mashiko says gas went down 20 cents. Yeah, so we'll give that some applause. All right, we've got Dare here. He's from Toronto, checking in for the first time. Great to have you here. And Chaitanya, of course, very faithful watcher. He says, having a snow day today. Good to see you, Mark and Alicia. Also looking forward to have my consultation with Mark later today. Oh, that's today. Great. I look forward to connecting with you again, Chaitanya. A previous client of Mark and his team, him and his team is the best. Oh, I'll give you one of those, Chaitanya. Great to connect. Is that Jesseline? Jesseline says, shout out to Mark and Alicia watching from Gatineau. Excellent. And let's see what else we have here. And we've got VR says, good to see you both tuning in from Brampton. Thanks for all your valuable suggestions. They have made a positive impact so far. That's great. Okay, we love doing little bits of shout outs, but let's jump to the super chats. So Nash, also a frequent follower, says, can you clarify the recent updates on the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program website, including the changes regarding expired express entry profiles and the public policy to facilitate work permits? Okay, so one thing we have seen on that page is that the public policy to facilitate work permits, they're referring to a previous one that IRCC had instituted last year. And in effect, it was triggered in part by Manitoba. And there were a number of students that were quite upset and they were protesting on the steps of the legislature in Winnipeg about the poor treatment that they were having. And as a little anecdotal side note, during that year, Manitoba actually didn't process all of their nominations. And I talked to some of my colleagues in Winnipeg, immigration lawyers there, and they couldn't figure out exactly why, if it was just a capacity issue, they didn't have enough officers to process, but they actually didn't process all of the nominations that they had, but yet they had quite a big backlog. And when people are desperately relying upon these nominations to then apply for PR and then extend their work permits, it becomes an issue. So for whatever reason, and many of these people were just, well, I shouldn't say just, but they were only at the expression of interest stage. So they hadn't actually submitted an application to the Manitoba PNP. They were individuals that were kind of in the queue within an expression of interest waiting to be pulled out. Now, for the most part, they probably would have been drawn because they met all the requirements. It was just a timing issue. And so they agreed to give them, at least the province of Manitoba, the ability to issue these facilitative kind of policy-based work permits to allow them to stay in status until they got their nominations. And of course, what you do for one province, it's like your children. If you do one thing for one, then the other ones are going to say, what about me? And so some of the other provinces also took that up. But I think it was just Alberta, and I can't remember the third. There was maybe 3, maybe 4 other provinces that also took up IRCC with this. And Alberta did do it for some applicants in the previous, previous cohort. But this year they said, no, we're not doing this anymore. And so that's one of the notifications within the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. Do you want to slide over and take a look, Alicia?
Yeah, so they have announced a whole bunch of stuff in the last couple weeks. So if you go to the Alberta Program Updates page, basically starting now and working backwards. So April 1st, they've said, after April 1st, we will accept Pearson, the new Pearson test for English. Before that, you had to do CELPIP or IELTS for English. Now Pearson is okay.
They're on board.
Guess what? They increased their fees yesterday. So their fees are now $1,500 per application. So that has gone up yet again.
And that's many people, I think, were thinking that's April Fool's, but no, it wasn't an April Fool's joke.
Yeah, that's for real. There's new processing fees. Then kind of scrolling back in time.
You can see, I just pulled it up quick just to see all of these. And you can see $1,500 for the regular applications, $3,500 for entrepreneurs. And I don't have a problem with this, Alicia. These require a lot more effort to adjudicate, and it's way more intensive for the department. So I have no problems with people paying, $3,500 or even $5,000 for that matter for entrepreneur stream applications. But here you can see, Alicia, expression of interest. Did they always charge? Like, I don't recall there being a fee. I guess these are all entrepreneur, but I didn't realize, because we don't do a lot of these. But did they always charge for the expression of interest in the context of these entrepreneur streams? I just don't know. I can't remember because we never had an occasion to pursue one of these. But anyways, now even the expression of interest is going to, you're going to have to fork over $200. This one is painful to see. This $150 for an extension of a nomination. Well, the reason I say it's painful, there was a fee before, but the parameters around which you can actually request this are so narrow. The people who actually need this can't get it. So for all intents and purposes, if your nomination has expired already, you're hooped. Yeah. If it's still alive and it's going to be expiring, then you have a narrow window of time to be able to extend it. But this often is a problem with nominations expiring when a person has made a mistake in their PR portal and then they get their application returned 7 months after the nomination was issued. Happens all the time, right, Alicia?
And then AAIP says we're not going to extend it because you need a new nomination because that nomination was linked to the previous Express Entry profile. So it's,
exactly.
And then they have this confusing thing on updating Express Entry profiles. So March 17th, they said, if you submitted your Express Entry application on or after September 30th, 2024, and your profile expires before a decision is made, you can update it. The AAIP may ask you to submit a new profile that meets program requirements. Likewise, if your profile has expired or is about to expire, you may proactively update it in the portal. The updated Express Entry portal must still meet the AAIP criteria. But the problem with this is, in my experience, AAIP doesn't give you a second chance. And so if the Express Entry profile expires and they've already linked it to a nomination, they won't give you a new nomination. I don't know how much this will help people.
No.
Participation in public policy. Yeah, that's what we talked about. They're not doing it for 2025. They did do some, but they chose the ones that they wanted in 2024.
And I'll also point out, Alicia, that this is different, you guys, than the 204C letter. Okay. This is a different work permit than the 204C letter that sometimes can be issued to facilitate a work permit when you have a nomination.
The next one from March 17th is actually really a big deal. And so this one is saying that they will no longer invite candidates under the family connection and occupation in demand pathway. And that was where most people were trying to shoehorn their way in
Yeah.
because they didn't meet eligibility criteria for healthcare or one of the other like police officers or the very kind of niche other areas that AAIP has.
Yeah. They can still claim the points for a family connection, right? When it comes to the expression of interest system, but there is no general category to get through. So you still have to go back. And if we just shift here to and look at some of these that are listed here, the Alberta Opportunity Stream, the Alberta Express Entry Stream, this is the one that is really occupation specific now. So, when you look at the different categories, healthcare, et cetera, if you want to be an enforcement officer, there's a category for that. But rural renewal stream, tourism and hospitality. So yeah, within the express entry stream, if you will, that's this connection, the family connection was what a lot of people were trying to get through. And
Yeah.
that one now is poof.
It's gone. So now
Yeah,
there's only the dedicated healthcare, the accelerated tech, the law enforcement, or a priority sector, construction, agriculture, or aviation.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah, exactly. And all the application streams obviously are all listed here right on the website. All right. Okay, great question. That took us down a whole different path, but hey, Nash, that was a super, so we're giving you a super answer. Okay, Marco says, is the grandparent sponsorship stream still open? Okay, maybe you can explain that one for Marco, Alicia, because this is the bane of my existence, the absolute
Yeah.
bane of my existence.
So, Marco, what IRCC has done is way back in 2020, so literally 5 years ago, they said, okay, people who want to put in kind of like an expression of interest, it's basically saying they are putting in their intention to sponsor eligibility parameters. They're saying, I'm a child, I'm a PR citizen, I have made enough money based on my family, and it's usually LICO, so low income cutoff guideline plus 30%. During the pandemic years, they did have a little bit of adjustment because they knew that stuff was happening for a lot of people. But in general, it's the low income cutoff guideline plus 30%. Only people who had managed to get their foot in the door to put that intent to sponsor form in, who met all the eligibility priority requirements back in 2020 and maintained eligibility every single year since then, only those people in the pool are having their applications drawn in kind of a lottery system. And they have continued to draw from that same pool back from 2020, and they've said that they're going to do the same thing again this year. So is it still open? Only if you had your expression of interest to sponsor and it was eligible in 2020 and you've kept eligibility all the way through and it's still in there. And then it's still a lottery. So not really. It's not open for anybody new.
Yeah, yeah, that's unfortunately the reality of the world that we're currently in. Okay, Shalia says, hi, hello, Mark and Alicia. Good morning. Watching from Calgary. I'm confused if a post-grad work permit holder is allowed to study a short course, less than 6 months, like Caregiver program, etc., either online or face-to-face. Thanks. This is a massively confusing area. People are constantly misunderstanding what this really means. But Alicia, you want to tackle that one?
Okay. So maybe Mark, you can go to the
Mm,
IRCC page. It's public policy allowing some work permit holders to study without a study permit. And so there is a temporary public policy. It depends on whether you had status as of June 27th, 2023, before or after. So
mhm.
it's got this who's eligible. Did you apply for a valid work permit on or before June 7th, 2023? Or do you have a letter authorizing you to work after June 7th, 2023? If you applied for a work permit after June 7th, you're not eligible for these measures. Okay, so that's the key phrase. If you applied before, so if you were prior to June 7th, 2023, then you might be eligible. And then it talks about how long. Yeah, so what kind of work permits you have. Do you have an employer-specific work permit? Um,
And remember, this is
and
all if you have applied for work permit before June 7th, 2023. So that's what they're getting as they break this down here. That's what they're referring to.
mhm. Then they go through if you have a study permit. Then they talk about, okay, let's assume that you have a valid work permit and applied for it on or before June 7th, 2023. Then you are eligible to study through this public policy until June 27th, 2026, or if they revoke it earlier, then they revoke it earlier. And technically, you're allowed to study without a study permit until the expiry date on your work permit. But, and the big but is, you must have applied for that work permit before June 7th, 2023 to be able to take advantage of these temporary public policy measures.
Yeah. And one thing I will add, which kind of lends itself back to what Shalee is asking here, she's referring to a course less than 6 months. So there is a provision. I can't remember which reg it is, Alicia. Maybe you can pull it up and I'll pull it up after. That authorizes someone on entry to study in a program of study of less than 6 months without a study permit. But that individual, that course of study of less than 6 months needs to have occurred on entry. And so if you're already here on a work permit and subject to this policy that we've just looked at, the general rule is that you are unable to study, while you're on a work permit, regardless of whether it's 6 months or less, without a studying permit. You're only able to do that if you are doing so on entry. And how it typically comes into play is to facilitate people who want to come on a visitor visa and then take an English class of a short period of time and then return home. So that was really the foundation. And I remember taking that training back in 2002 when I was working on the border on this new change, which was designed to remove some of the administrative headache of people applying for study permits when they were just coming for a short period of time to study English. And so they created this policy, this regulatory provision to help facilitate that. But remember, it is on entry, not, hey, I want a work permit. I can study anytime I want, as long as the program's less than 6 months, which is the part that people very, very commonly mess up.
Yeah, and it's misleading because if you go to study permit, who can study
Yes.
without a permit,
Mhm.
it says short-term studies. You don't need a study permit if you're coming to Canada for a program that lasts 6 months or less. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out where the regulation is, but
Yeah,
there was
me
a case.
too.
And so there was a case that said this short-term period of studies literally has to be the first time you come to Canada. So if you
Yeah.
came and you already did your study permit and you're on a PGWP, you can never use this short-term period of studies provision because it only applies the very first time you enter Canada. So, and I'll keep searching around for
I
it
know I was
because
doing
I
a quick
know
little
it's in the
search, see if I
reg.
could pull it up here.
Yeah. Yeah, but they don't clearly lay that out on their main page.
Okay, here I think it's 188. Let's see if
That
this is
sounds
it
right.
here. So we've got here no permit required. So a foreign national may study in Canada without a study permit. Down here, if the duration of their course or program of studies is 6 months or less, okay, that's all fine and dandy, and will be completed within the period for their stay authorized upon entry into Canada. So that's
Yeah.
the key right here. So it would have to be completed within the 6 months of entering Canada. That's basically what this says, subject to the public policy that Alicia was talking about here.
Mhm.
All right, good question, Shalia. Way to go. I'll give you a little applause for that one. All right. Okay. Natasha says, is a PNP Alberta actually done for 2025? Chances for accounting technician with postgrad work permit and 59 points. So this one, I'm going to ring this little bell, Natasha, and encourage you to book a consult. And we can take a look at your situation and see what the options are. Is the Alberta PNP done for 2025? No, it's not done, but definitely the nominations are slowing because they have fewer available to them. And it's interesting, Alicia, I just had an interview with Nicholas Keung yesterday. There's going to be he's doing an article in the Toronto Star talking about the PNPs and the challenges with this work permit policy we've just talked about, the implications of the lengthy processing times on applicants, and why PNP express entry applicants are somehow treated better than the regular PNP applicants. Like there's something nefarious going on, because I think we have 28 months, I think, for a regular, like through the PR portal, a non-express entry PNP. And then of course the 6-7 months, whatever it is, for an express entry. And so we had a good discussion, about an hour, talking about a bunch of different things. We'll see when that article comes out. But yeah, this is a reality across the board. And so the accounting technician, I can tell you, Natasha, the accounting technicians are one of the more common positions that people are filling right now as post-grad work permit holders. And when you have everybody as accounting technicians, it becomes less of a priority for the province. They try to distribute the nominations equally amongst different industries. And so it becomes more challenging. But in terms of whether or not you have a chance with 59 points and what you've described here, I really encourage you to book a consult, and we can chat about that further. Any other thoughts on that one, Alicia?
Yeah, most of the time you'll need to be like under rural renewal. So maybe you're a accounting technician, but you're working in one of the rural renewal communities and you have a community designation letter. Then maybe you do have a good chance. Or maybe you're working for a tech company and you have the accelerated tech eligibility requirements, and then maybe you have a chance. So there's other things going on where Alberta is targeting very specific jobs, but normally you have to have that job offer and the employer has to have that employer declaration form, and it has to meet all the valid requirements in order to get those job offer points. So it is for sure super competitive in almost all the PNPs across the board.
Yeah, it is. And for those who are new, all you have to do is slide over to our firm website here. Oh, I was adjusting my little, for our podcast, oops, what am I doing now? Now I'm in trouble. I don't know what I did there. Come back. Here it is. I was adjusting my frame here for our, there we go. We'll get a little bit of a better fit here. Kind of. Oh, kind of. Nothing like on the fly adjusting your frames here. Okay, we'll figure it out. It's all good.
Oh, maybe Mark pop over to speak to a lawyer, because we actually put our new photos up
Oh
on the web.
yeah, we do have our new photos here. This is really irritating me now. Trying to figure
I'll
out why
go to
this
the
isn't
About
working.
Us, because that's also where the other photos are.
Okay, man, this is not pretty. Oh, there, that's better. Okay. So yeah, if we go to About Us, our team, we do have some new firm photos. Yeah, we got them taken. Look at us, fancy people there. So there's the crew, and each of us have got our new little profile pictures up here as well. So let's see if we've got, oh yeah, down here. Yeah. Look at that. Even got Prem. There's the massive operation, you guys. This is where all the magic happens within the firm, right here. And then you got all this other extra information here about Alicia and backgrounds and memberships and publications. It has been a long time since I updated. We do so many speaking engagements. I think it's been like 3 years since I updated my our publications and presentation section. I wonder when was the last one. I'm just going to pull this up and take a quick look. Publications. Oh yeah, April 19th, 2023. Oh, that's quite fun.
There
Oh,
you go.
that's
Put
good.
another couple years worth on there.
Yeah. And I was religious about recording everything that I'd done in the past. And you can see here, you guys, it goes all the way back. Oh, so many things. This is the very first one right here. Sourcing foreign workers and crossing borders, facing the future in agriculture. It was an ag conference in Okotoks. I was working in Calgary at the time, and I think I was still an articling student. And it was the first one, May 29, 2006, that I officially presented. And I wonder, just give me a second. I'm gonna back.
We go back a while, everybody. Yeah, we've been practicing for 20 years,
I still
and
have it. Here, I'll show
yeah,
you.
we've got
So
some
this
good oldies.
here, this is what they gave me, and it's barnwood here, and you can see it's got a little bit of a reflection with my light here, but it's the grain elevators that you'll see all across the prairies, or used to see, as a landmark for each small little town that you pass by. The railroad tracks went by the grain elevators, and so they gave me this nice little picture, and I don't know if you can see there, but it says in appreciation facing the future in agriculture, and then the date. So I still have that one. Memories, Alicia. That's almost 20 years ago.
I know.
Wow. 20 years ago. Very cool. There you go. Trip down memory lane. So yes, Mark needs to update his speaking engagements, but I don't know if I can remember them all. And imagine if we put every one of our live Q&As on there, for every time you and I went live. And we actually, Alicia and I have some new pictures. Our little intro video, I forgot the little, when people are waiting to join the live, I have to update that thumbnail because we've got a brand new one. It's like I don't know what we need like guns like this. It's like the Charlie's Angels or something. Anyways, okay. So, so if we go to our YouTube channel, we are closing in. We are so close. We're at 987 videos, and we're going to hit 1,000 here. And we actually broke 65,000 subscribers. I didn't realize that. Hey, thank you so much, everybody, for following us and actually listening and supporting us and asking all these great questions, because that's why these live Q&As are so good. It's because of the good questions that you guys ask. All right. Okay, so we've covered Natasha here. Let's head over to Julio. Joaquin Julio says, I'm a class 1 driver in Alberta and my work permit will expire in November 2025. I wonder if I can extend my work permit. Okay, this is a classic example of hitting the triangle and then sliding over to our firm website and saying, hey, slide over here, click on speak to a lawyer, and then book a consultation with one of us. You can choose 25 or 50-minute consults, whatever you need. And we can actually help you to assess that, Julio. And it's better to do it sooner versus later, because things are not easy right now for individuals looking to remain. I'm actually going to pull you in, Alicia, with another company down here in Lethbridge that is applying for a labor market impact assessment for a millwright, and yeah, so it's very rare that these are even have a possibility of working, but I think this one can. The industry is very, very short staffed. Yeah.
And so, Julio, here, and this has happened twice this week where I was talking to somebody, and often they're American clients who have a work permit, and they either had it under an intercompany transfer or a CUSMA professional, and they just try to renew their work permit, but they don't have either a new LMIA from their employer or a new employer portal offer under. If they're doing a CUSMA, they have to have that employer portal offer. So it's a LMIA exemption, but you still have to have that A number. Otherwise, your work permit extension application is doomed to failure. So if you already have one, same thing with you, Julio, if you have a LMIA-based work permit, you can't just automatically extend. You need to go back to your employer, and either the employer needs to get a new LMIA, or if there is an LMIA exemption, like a free trade agreement, that employer still needs to submit a new employer portal application. There's no just extension as of right. You need to basically have that full employer support again, either under the LMIA or the LMIA exemption under the employer portal, and have all of that as a basis for that extension of your work permit. And for some reason, a lot of people are missing that. They think they can do it on their own. They just go to extend, and then their work permit's going to get refused. So be super careful. Make sure that you have the underlying eligibility for the type of work permit you're asking for.
All right. Next question comes from Diane. She says, hi, Mark and Alicia, are post-grad work permit and open work permit holders, can they take trainings and certificates if less than 2 months? How about taking it outside Canada via online? So this is kind of, this continues on from the discussion we've already had about studying without a study permit.
Okay, so there is policy guidance on study permits, and if you look, it says if it is not a designated learning institution and if it's purely distance learning. So that means that it's 100% online and there is no in-person element of the exam. And this is where it normally is a problem because many courses will be online, especially if you're doing them inside of Canada, but they will have an invigilation. So they will have somebody sit there and watch you take the exam to make sure that you're not cheating. And if you physically have to go into a testing center and have somebody watch you take the exam, you actually need the study permit for that portion. You need the study permit in order to write the final exam. So be careful with what types of programs you're taking. Make sure that you are eligible to take that program without having a study permit, because otherwise you've studied without authorization and you've got to disclose that on your temporary and permanent residence applications. So if you are doing purely online, make sure it's 100% online, even the exam taking. Otherwise, you may need a study permit.
All right. Let's see. I saw one here. I wanted to give a shout out to. Yes, Andrew. All right. Andrew says, hello. I got my PR via CEC a couple of weeks ago. So there's definitely some applause. He says, I've been following your channel for a year. Your fair and balanced advice has been very useful. Best wishes to you and Alicia. Good vibes. Thanks so much, Andrew. We really appreciate that. That's the feedback that we love. That's when we really feel like we're making a difference. And you know, Alicia and I could have done a lot of different things with our law degrees. And I think both of us, for the most part, gravitated to this issue because we wanted to have a difference in people, you know, make a difference in people's lives and feel like we were doing things that were meaningful, not just to our clients, but to us. And that's why we do what we do. Definitely not to be rich, that's for certain, but to just feel like we're making a difference. So thanks, Andrew. We love that kind of feedback. Okay, let's hit another super chat. Let's see here. Shawshank here says, I would like to take charge of my profile from my representative. I watched a video regarding the process and form. My deadline is in 3 weeks. How many days will it take, and would you recommend doing it? Okay, I think I saw another one as well, if I'm not mistaken here. Let's see. I think I saw another. I want to make sure it's the same. Yeah, it is. And this one, it says, I have an ITA, but I want to fire my consultant, take back the profile. Okay. So here's the thing. I just did this with a client and we filed the PR and everything together. It was almost instantaneous. So when you had the information, and this is the key to be able to properly identify your application, you know, you've got your passport that was used, you've got your UCI number, the proper surname is listed and you can match it up from the drop down, then it's pretty instantaneous. Now, I'm going to ring the bell and tell you I'll never give you advice to do anything because you're saying, hey, what if I do this? Am I going to run out of time? Well, I'm not going to advise you to do anything specifically because I don't know your situation. I don't know what the circumstances are. But I can tell you the last time that I did it, which was I think about 3 weeks ago, it was a similar situation. The person just did not feel confident with the answers they were getting from their consultant. And so they decided to pull their express entry application back into their own, newly created IRCC secure account and then continue forward on their own. And this was after they'd received an invitation to apply. And when we entered the information in and we clicked submit, it was almost instantaneous that a notification was received then it was linked back to their profile. But understand, I'll never say just go for it, because at the end of the day, I'd rather have you book a consult and we do it together, because there's a lot of different things that can happen. And right now, like Alicia said, there is huge problems within the government's portal system. And it was almost painful watching our clients post emails in our CBA and our CETA listservs, the immigration lawyer listservs, talking about their frustrations and experience trying to get the caregiver applications processed, and then how the overrun of that portal had trickle effects over into other areas that block people from being able to access to file study permits and other applications. And so there's always a danger when you're trying to do this. And when you're leaving it to the last minute or, relatively near the end of the expiry of your ITA, there are dangers. And so I just want to advise you about that. But yeah, it was pretty darn quick when we did it.
Yeah, the only other thing is make sure that you're properly doing that cancellation of use of rep. I had a client who wanted to take off their consultant, and there is a new use of rep form. So there's a new form, and it's 3 pages long now, and you should be able to cancel your use of rep without your use of rep signature. Just you just cancel. But you need to make sure that you're properly signing that form. And IRCC had a little bit of a loop back where they, my client signed that form, but they didn't believe that they actually added their signature, and they wanted them to print it and like ink sign it and then upload another version of it. So just make sure you've got that cancellation of use of rep properly completed when you do that. And then the next thing is make sure that you know what is on your file, because there are potential concerns about misrepresentation depending on what your consultant might have put on applications in the past. So be careful if you've done prior study permit applications or work permit or visitor visas with that consultant, because you want to know what they've said on your past applications.
Yeah, good points, Alicia. McAnett says here what we're exactly talking about, less than 24 hours. And to be honest, you guys, that's consistent with every program the government launches. The TR to PR pathway for international graduates was filled within, from, I think it opened at 10 and it was full by a little after noon. That was 90,000 applications. The H-1B, there were 10,000 spots, and just to put it into context, like I feel for those people that were going through the home care pilot, but anyone who was trying to do the H-1B, and I was up at 3 a.m. in the morning because we weren't sure exactly when it was going to be launched. And, we sat with the client and waited, and eventually we made it all through, even with the client, his spouse, and 3 children, because we were prepared. But wow, it is, it's crazy times here in the world of Canadian immigration. Okay, let's see what we have next. This is Meet Patel, says, I claim for 15 points as my own sister is Canadian citizen. However, she went to the US to study and work. Is that a problem, Alicia?
Yeah, it's a problem. So you've got to make sure that you have your sister residing in Canada. So take a look. There's 2 different ways you can claim points for a sibling. One is under your minimum eligibility criteria on that pass mark for federal skilled worker, the 67 points. The other one is on your CRS score. But take a careful look at the wording of that question when you're answering it, because you don't want to be in a situation where they can say misrep, that you're actually claiming points that you don't have because your sister is not present in Canada.
Yeah. Here's another great express entry question. This is from Ash 0885. Hi, my job position is warehouse and admin assistant. So 50-50 split, 2 positions into 1. Warehouse workers tier 4, admin assistants tier 3. Will this be a problem for express entry? How do you deal with this, Alicia, when you've got these 50-50 splits? Like, this is a mess.
Mm-hmm. So this is probably one, Ash, where I'd say book a consult. We'd want to take a look at this and see, can you prove that it's actually a 50-50 split? Does your employer pay you separately for these jobs? Is there a timesheet log where you can tell that this is clearly your admin assistant, which is a high skilled knock, versus the low skilled, which you can't claim points for? And so you'll have to do a very detailed job. And normally I have people create like Excel spreadsheets. And so you can actually detail, all right, these are the dates and times, and here's how many hours I worked as an admin assistant, which does count, versus what was I doing that was low skilled. And IRCC, understand, is going to be suspicious, right? They're going to say, well, maybe people are trying to just pump all that job experience or the hours into the high skilled when maybe they weren't doing a high skilled job the entire time. So it'll be, the onus is on you to make sure that you are establishing, these are the hours I worked. You're backing that up with evidence from an employment letter from your employer, pay stubs, timesheets, detailed hour calculations.
All right. Next up is PGSL. And this is another express entry related question. Excuse me. In general, what's the minimum percentage of similarity required between my job experience letter and the duties listed under the knock? So we know that the government uses the term substantially. the same. So, or I should say, no, let's see. Is that the
Substantial
word they use?
number of.
Substantial number of duties. Yes. I was conflating ICTs with, yeah. So a substantial number of the main duties. So what do you, like, if you're looking at a percentage, what do we kind of tell our clients, Alicia?
So Mark and I are wanting to err on the side of being overcautious. So we say to be safe, make sure that you're going to have at least 75%. And here's where I think most people miss, and it's in that opening paragraph. So immigration says not only a substantial number of the listed mandatory main duties, but also the activities of the lead statement. And so the activities of the lead statement in a NOC are that opening paragraph that talks about what you do in the job. And then they've got all the bullet points. So make sure that you have the activities of the lead statement, that opening paragraph, as well as 75% of the bullet points, the ones that are mandatory, so they don't start with the word may do this or that.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to pull up another question. We're getting a lot of express entry questions, and I just want to point out here. I'm just going to pull up our little headline here. This DIY, this live Q&A that we do every week is sponsored by the Express Entry Accelerator DIY course. So if this is your first time watching the channel, a lot of the information that Alicia and I talk about and the tips and the strategies, the general information on Express Entry is all embedded within our Express Entry DIY course. And when you go to the Canadian Immigration Institute, there's a link in the description below. You can see here that we have right now 2 courses. Now, we've had lots in the past, but the government keeps changing things. And if it's not current or accurate, we have to take it down and revise it. And so the same thing goes for the 2024 edition of Express Entry. Now that the job offer points have been lifted, there isn't substantial changes that have to happen within my course because you're still going to enter it in the exact same way. But the difference is the job offer points for the purposes of the comprehensive ranking system are now gone. But this Express Entry Accelerator and Masterclass, which we do masterclasses every other week, so not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, I'll be doing another masterclass. You can connect in, there's a link, and this course is absolutely full of everything that you could possibly need to navigate your way through the Express Entry process. And on top of it, the masterclass is available for you to come and join for life. So I guess I stand corrected. I guess we have it tonight. I didn't even realize. Yeah, I was sick last week. So 5 hours, 4 minutes, we're going to do our masterclass later this afternoon. So I welcome, subscribe, join any questions you have. It's kind of a similar format to this, except it's more of a webinar. So we talk, we have our videos, we drill deep into the Express Entry, but a lot of what we cover is all based in the Accelerator course. And you can see as you go through, there's a breakdown of all of the different sections. There are a ton of modules, and within the Mastering Your Document section, I have a lesson geared towards every single document that you would upload. So videos, sample documents, checklists, and we even have some custom GPTs that we've set up to help you choose your NOC code, to help you identify when your reference letter has everything that you need, things like that. Subject to your final review, of course. Never trust ChatGPT to do anything for you. It's a good guide to get you in the right direction, but always vet it. Don't just rely on it. Okay, so there we go. I just want to give that a little heads up to people because we've got a lot of really good Express Entry questions, like Dikshant here, who says, how does IRCC confirm eligibility for an education category-based draw? Is having the experience in the NOC listed added as work history enough, or does it have to be my primary NOC, CRS 458? So this is the category-based draws, Alicia.
And so this is a good question, and no, it doesn't have to be your primary NOC. So you could, as long as you are eligible for an underlying category, so federal skilled worker, federal skilled trades, or the CEC, you have to meet basic eligibility criteria. Once you've done that, as long as you have 6 months of full-time equivalent work within the last 3-year period, and you're in one of these NOCs, so if it's education, you've got to go down, click, make sure that you're checking which NOCs are eligible educational occupations. If you have a profile, and even if this is not your primary NOC, if you have work experience within the last 3 years, 6 months equivalent in one of these NOCs, if IRCC were to do an education draw, then you might be eligible, but your CRS points still have to be above whatever the cutoff is for that draw.
Exactly. And then this is obviously the list of occupations within the education world, which I just don't understand how these categories get created. But anyways, there you go, Dikshant. All right. Shout out to you too, Jaspreet, tuning in and watching us from Brampton. Great to have you here. And Beauty for Ashes says, good morning, Mark and Alicia. Christine here joining for the first time from beautiful BC. So we'll give you some applause there. Thanks for connecting in with us. Okay, VJ says, updated score of 477 post-LMIA point removal. And this is important because before the points were removed for VJ, VJ would have been at what, 427, 427. And that very well could have been in a very, competitive range to get an ITA. But, the question now, Alicia, and many people are asking, and we pull up our crystal ball here, with the removal, what are the scores actually going to look like? Because we don't know yet. Are we going to see many people, dropping from that 427 now down to the 477, which 477 in the past was a good score. And like we talked about before, and like I teach in the course with some of the case scenarios we went over, an individual that's 29 years old, has a master's degree, has a CLB 9, that's an 8 in listening and a 7 in the other abilities on the IELTS, or a 9s across the board on the CELPIP, and have 3 years of foreign work experience, that individual sits in the range of 469 points. So any individual who is at that stage, remember, being 29 and having a master's degree and 3 years of work experience is not easy to get. That's kind of like the perfect scenario. But we were seeing that as really the preeminent score for Express Entry for many years, until we started to get more and more and more people who were coming to Canada, studying, getting the other 15 or 30 points, then getting a postgrad work permit, often of 3 years, then accumulating 1 year. And often that wasn't enough in the modern era of Express Entry, then getting another year, so you've got 40 points if you're a single, another 10 for that following year, 50 points. And so if you would go do, an undergraduate degree, you get 30 points for that, plus another potentially 50 if you've worked 2 years. That's kind of the range that people were in. And then people with LMIAs, they were able to be more competitive with those job offers because they got that extra 50 bonus points, but now that's being stripped away. But VJ, you've got the Canadian work experience, that 35 or 40 points guarantee, which is keeping your points still high. And I suspect your normal human capital VJ is probably around the mid to low 400s, And so without the Canadian side of things, without the Canadian experience, and many people are going to be in that situation. So is 477 going to be enough? For construction, I think there's a good chance within that realm. If it was SEM, there's no such thing as STEM anymore. But if it was SEM, then maybe not so, because people generally do tend to have a little bit higher education. But I don't know. What are your thoughts, Alicia? I think he's got a shot.
Yeah, like when I look back, so keep in mind we're not talking about federal skilled trades. We're talking about somebody that has CEC eligibility plus the targeted 6 months within one of the trade category specific roles, because 700s don't qualify for FST, so we're only looking at the trade category specific with a CEC. But when we look back at the previous rounds of invitations, we haven't had a trade occupation specific since October 23rd of 2024. And when we look at those, October 23rd draw, it was a CRS of 433. But just because we have not had one for so many months, those CRS scores are probably going to be quite a bit higher. So even with the removal of those arranged employment 50 points, maybe a 477 will be sufficient, but we just haven't had a trade occupation draw since October of last year. So we'll have to see what it comes in at. But if you look historically, and remember, this was when there was still 50 arranged employment points, it has historically been quite a bit lower than the other targeted categories. So may very well have a chance.
Yeah, and that's what people need to understand too. These scores right here, often the trades, people working in these occupations often had LMIA-based work permits as well. So in many cases, these people, the lower scores, their actual human capital was below 400, maybe in the high 380s. And so I think there's a decent shot for you. I do, BJ. Okay, Diane says for Franco mobility work permit, this is LMIA exempt. Can we apply that inland? So ultimately, Diane, this is one of these right here. There's no restrictions on how you're applying for a Francophone mobility work permit. So if you're outside of Canada and you're applying for your first work permit, if you're transitioning from, say, a postgrad work permit and you have an offer and you've learned French or you have French and you can go through that program, you can do that. You can apply to change conditions. And so there's no, you can apply in land. If you are, though, Alicia, if you are a visitor in Canada, this is maybe the one that we'll address. So if you have come, someone advises you, hey, come on a visa and then apply for your work permit. Once you get to Canada, be faster. What are your thoughts to that horrible strategy?
Yeah, so this is, and there was some confusion with Francophone mobility because they actually had said that it's a outside Canada application when they first rolled out the program. Generally, the regular rules apply. And so the rule is that if you are on visitor status, you are not eligible to make an application from inside Canada for a work permit. There were some temporary public policy exemptions to that rule during COVID. Those have ended. So make sure that if you are trying to change categories on a work permit, you have to have existing and already valid work permit. So that's visitors are not eligible to apply from inside Canada for the work permit.
Mm-hmm. All right, we've got the Fast and Furious Express entry questions. Toto says, I've got a question regarding CRS. Are the points awarded, and this is for Canadian work experience, are they awarded before completing a full year? How is that possible, Alicia?
So Toto, sometimes the system messes up, and the reason that they mess up is because they count the month. So if you say I started in January, but you started January 30th, it's going to give you credit for the whole month of January. It's going to assume you started January 1st, and you have to correct it. So this is the problem, that you have to make sure that you are not accepting an ITA and submitting your EAPR too early. Or you also have to make sure that when you're creating your profile in that questionnaire, when it says, do you have a year of work experience in Canada, make sure that you do not answer yes unless and until you actually have a full 52 weeks. Otherwise, immigration might say you've misrepresented.
All right, next question. This is a super from Batter. Batter says, hello, Mark. Thanks for all the help you provide. I have a valid work permit exempt under the Mobility Francophone until May 19th of this year, 2025. Okay. Still giving me the 50 points. Okay. This is no longer a thing. So it says, giving me the 50 points. Now I got a new work permit with the LMIA support from the same employer. My question is, can I keep the first work permit until it expires, or I need to remove it from my profile? So Batter, I think you're conflating a couple different things. It's one thing to have the work experience, and then it's another to identify what status you're working under. There's no restrictions on maintaining two work permits. However, if one, and I couldn't tell Alicia from his initial comment if it's the same employer, I think it might be.
I think he said
I think you're under the misapprehension, Batter, that you're still getting the job offer points for this, the 50 points, which is not the case anymore. So switching from a Francophone mobilité work permit to an LMIA, there's no points that are available anymore for the comprehensive ranking system. So I had a client just a couple weeks ago that booked a consultation, and the employer, she had just got her work permit back the day before IRCC officially said no more job offer points. So it had taken like 9 or 10 months, actually probably even more by the time she got her work permit back, but they had the LMIA approved, and it had come in just days before the points were removed. So obviously she had the ability to maintain her stay and continue working. But in her case, she was on a QET work permit anyways, kind of like you, Batter, where it didn't matter now whether you're on a Francophone mobilité or an LMIA based. Now, is there something that I might be missing from this, Alicia?
I think the confusion might be, and I think I saw somebody else in the chat say that they are still showing the 50 points in their profile as well.
Okay.
So what IRCC has said is that it might take them some time to go through all the profiles and properly remove the 50 points. So even though you see them, they're fake. They're going to disappear. So if anybody has an express entry profile out there and they're still seeing 50 points for arranged employment, those are going to disappear anytime now. Definitely, probably
Yeah.
within the next week.
And I'm
So
surprised that they haven't disappeared already. That's what's
yeah.
making me surprised.
But here's the thing, you can still list that you have a job
Mhm.
offer. And the reason that you would still list that you have a job offer, if you do, and you've got to carefully answer all those little sub questions about the job offer, but sometimes that's important or valuable for a provincial nominee eligibility. So this is where you can still answer those questions, make sure you're doing so correctly, but understand you will not get the 50 points.
Yeah. And just to further dive a little deeper into what Alicia just said, um, in the day when there weren't 500,000 people vying for, 50,000 spots for PNPs, when there was an actual more balanced supply demand for nominations, provinces would fill their quotas by extending notifications of interest to people who were in the pool. Provinces like Alberta, for instance, that didn't really have a super defined definition for how they selected people, would often look at a person's knock code and see if they were working in Alberta. And two of the ways they could see that were, one, their ability to look at your work history that you'd listed, and also whether or not you listed, yes, I have a job offer. And so that would trigger to Alberta and other provinces that, okay, this person is maybe a better candidate because they have a job offer. So to some extent, that's what they're referring to in terms of job offers being beneficial for the PNPs. Because at the end of the day, what you put in your profile, if you're going through a program like the Alberta Opportunity Stream or one that's a non-express entry PNP program through any of the other provinces, it doesn't go through express entry. It goes through the PR portal. So that's not an issue. So really what it comes down to is when they're scrubbing the pool of candidates to see who might be of, their work experience might be a good fit for the labor shortages in a particular province, that's where the job offer really is important. And of course, if you're outside of Canada, the FSW, you're still getting points for the Federal Skilled Worker Program selection criteria, the eligibility for the maximum of 100 points, where you have to meet 67 as the pass to get into the Federal Skilled Worker Program, which I cover all of that in the course, but people rarely talk about, getting into the pool. They just fill out the little wizard and it says, yeah, you can get in, and they don't know how or why fully. So yeah, just a few other little bits and pieces to consider. Okay, another super from Kumar. He says, I applied for a visitor visa for my spouse, but it was rejected. We now have an AOR for spousal PR. Do you assist with reapplying for TRV? How to contact? Okay, well, anything that you need from us in terms of retaining us can be found on our website. So if you go to Holthe Immigration Law, you can just type it in, Google it, but it's holthelaw.com. And you come here and you click on speak to a lawyer. It will then take you to our consult page, and it's super easy. Right now, you can literally go in and just click on a box, say, okay, I want to book a consult with Alicia, and she has availability tomorrow already. So you can just book a consult and away you go. All right. Okay, good question, Kumar. And we look forward to connecting with you. Hopefully we can help. Okay, Sabri says, you just mentioned your experience at the border. Okay, and that brought a question to mind. All right, what's Sabri's question here? For someone with a visitor visa, the allowed 6-month stay in Canada, does it start counting, Alicia, I'll ask you this question, does it start counting from the first entry, reset with each new entry, or is it a cumulative total of time spent in Canada?
hmm So it technically resets every time you come in. So 6 months, unless the officer stamps or marks something otherwise. So they could say, I don't think you're going to stay temporarily. I think you're going to try to overstay or stay without authorization. I'm only going to let you in for a week or a day or whatever. That doesn't usually happen. Sometimes it does. But if an officer just lets you in, the rule is that you've got 6 months from the last entry on a regular visitor status. Even if they don't stamp the passport, you've got to make sure to go back and diarize and make a note of what day you actually came into the country. The reason this also becomes a big headache is if you have minor children. And so this has been coming back to be a real pain for people
Yes,
where, for whatever reason, the border officer, and I tell them, I send them the package. I'm like, here are the study permit applications for the kids. But sometimes the officer's like, oh, I'll save you $100 for the study permit application, and I'll just let the child in as a visitor. Well, you don't want that. And the reason is because if you guys take a trip outside of Canada, and your child comes with you, even though mom and dad might have their valid work permits, if the child has a visitor record, so let's say they got a visitor record valid for the full time of their parents' work permits, which could be 2 years or 3 years, technically, if they leave, some immigration officers have been saying, oh, that resets the clock. And now every time they leave, they have to make sure to go and come back within a 6-month period to keep extending their temporary stay, which is a nightmare. So
it
just
is
watch out.
absolutely a nightmare. Okay, this question here is from, looks Korean. Curioseo, maybe? My job description overlaps both Tier 3 and 4. If I only indicate Tier 3 duties in the application and reference letter, would this be a misrepresentation, Alicia?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this is a similar question to the other overlapping tier and 3 and 4 jobs,
I don't
but
think, well, it could be, but yeah, this is. What are
okay.
your thoughts, Alicia, if someone's only providing a reference letter that just lists the Tier 3 and ignores the Tier 4?
It sounds like it definitely could stray into misrep territory.
Yeah.
And the reason is, just like I said, immigration is going to be suspicious. If you have two job roles, they're going to think, if the company's paying them the lower amount, they're probably doing the lower skilled job duties. And for you to try to wedge it into the high skilled, you've got to have solid evidence and proof that this is clearly when you stop doing the low skilled job, you start doing the high skilled job, and here are the hours and the pay and the letter from the employer to back it all up. So I would say book a consult. We can talk about what the job duties are, what evidence you have, but I would worry about misrep if you've got two different roles within that company. The employer letter, when you look at the completeness check, it needs to list all the positions within that company. And then it's up to you to choose how many hours, what period of time you're claiming for those foreign work experience or Canadian work experience points.
You bet. All right. Bader says, hello, Mark. Thanks for all the help you provide. I have a valid work permit exempt under the mobility Francophone until May 9th, okay, yeah. So I think we've got Bader's question here. Yeah, we covered that one. Okay, couple other ones, and we are just about out of time here. Joel says, I need to extend my postgrad since my passport expiration date was under the 3 years. I was able to renew my passport. Should I apply on paper or online?
So Joel, be really careful. So go to the website, make sure you follow the instructions. It has to be a paper application for a recapture of time. There are specific things that you've got to follow when you're doing that recapture of time. Technically, it's not an extension. This you've got to be super careful on, because if you do it incorrectly, you will get refused and that can mess up everything else. But make
Yeah.
sure to go through the program instructions. It has specific instructions for recapture of time where you have to send that paper application to. Make sure that you get that in well in advance, because you literally have to mail a package and that's going
Okay.
to take at least a week. So be careful about these.
And I'll share a horror story, Joel. I'm gonna click the triangle and tell you to book a consult with Alicia to help you. But Igor just shared with me this horrific story of someone in your exact situation, Joel, who submitted to recapture time. And ultimately, the recapture was rejected because it took like 6 or 7 months to process the work permit. So the officer, in their infinite wisdom or idiocy, I don't know which one, or just jerkness, maximum jerkness, said, well, you've already been working through maintained status the full amount of time that you would have otherwise been awarded on your postgrad work permit. So therefore, I'm not going to approve this work permit, which then left the person out of status, with a refused work permit. So Joel, you do not want to delay, and you have to be careful. You have to. Amy says, hey, Mark and Alicia, do you think there will be a CAC soon? I have 524 now after losing 5 points 1 week ago. Amy, I think you're in good shape as long as your work permit's valid. With the loss of the job offer points, CEC could still be that high just because of the people that are in the pool, but it's also entirely possible that it drops down below. And I think more than likely, if there's a CEC draw without the job offer points, it's going to be at most in the low 500s. And so I think you've got a good shot. What are your thoughts, Alicia?
The only thing is I'm trying to remember, Amy, I know you had questions last week and there was something worrisome that was going on with your situation and I can't remember what it was, but yeah.
Hopefully it can be resolved. Yes. Okay, Fontix, I'm going to tell you, amigo meo, that you should book a consultation, a compromiso. I don't know if that's the word in Portuguese, but anyways, he says he's got a whole bunch of things going on here, ITA and the French job, but you've got a Quebec LMIA, and there's a whole bunch of issues here. So I recommend, my friend, right here, book a consultation. There you go. Okay, I think we've kind of hit the end. Alicia, I don't know if you saw anything else that was worth addressing. Spider-Man says Mark needs to change the title to 2025 Express Entry Accelerator now. The title won't get changed until it's updated. And not that it has, like I said, there's nothing really substantively other than I will be modifying the offer of employment section, that lesson. I think it's like 53 or something within the course, to just confirm that there's no more CRS points. But we have a bunch of different videos, including case scenarios that I'm going to need to update. But ultimately, I think everybody knows now at this stage, they're just not getting those points for job offers anymore, which is sad.
One last thing, and I just saw a question from Loud FAQS. So if anybody is in the situation where they were panicked and they were trying to submit their application under the home care pilot and they made mistakes, then just like the TR to PR pathway, just like the H-1B, you still have a positive obligation to fix it. And so make sure that you do a web form, make sure that you're uploading amended documents or the form again with the corrections on them, because this is an area where immigration can for sure come back and say misrep, and they're not, even though it was their fault with this crazy system that wouldn't properly upload forms, they're going to hold your feet to the fire. So you have an obligation to correct your application, go and do a web form and correct any of the mistakes that you've made on your application, and hope that that doesn't mean that it renders your application incomplete.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much. As always, and I've indicated this a little bit earlier, if you're tuning in late, the live Q&A is sponsored by our Canadian Immigration Institute, and in particular, the Express Entry Accelerator Masterclass. So this 2024 edition is definitely going to be edited up, but it is chock full of everything that you need right now to help you navigate your way through Express Entry. So you can click here. There's a link in the description below. We also have our TRV course that Igor created, which is super popular with people who want to bring their family. And it has, both of these have custom GPTs that are built in to help you develop your invitation letters and your statements of why you want to come to Canada, and the letters of explanation, everything, reference letters. So there's a ton of different tools to help you navigate your way through that process. But I want to shift over to our firm website, if I can find it. I just finished deleting a whole bunch of things right here. And I want to point out the blogs and resource section. So we have our blog posts that are constantly being updated. In fact, Igor just released another one on the removal of express entry, job offer points, the good, bad, and the ugly. We had one that's very popular on the new immigration minister. Whether or not she will be the immigration minister here in a month or not is to be seen, but that one. We've got a ton of things, everything from the new immigration measures to support housing that I did, that one, express entry category changes, bridging open work permits, spousals. Whenever there's a big change, something going on, except the caregiver, we did not wade into the caregiver world. There's usually a blog post associated with it. As well, if we go up here, we have other resources, including the YouTube channel where many of you are watching, which is also pushed out to LinkedIn and Facebook and the other social channels. But please head on over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, because Alicia and I are constantly releasing, especially for you express entry folks, a new series called Getting It Right. And the last one we did is what happens if there are changes in your EAPR after you submitted your ITA. And Alicia and I just finished recording this morning. What was our topic this morning, Alicia?
Statutory declaration questions.
Indeed. And those are the ones that can come back and bite you with misrep more often than any others. Have you ever had a visa refused to Canada or any other country? Oh, you forgot your B2 visa, your visitor visa refusal to the US? An allegation of misrep would be forthcoming in most cases. So check that out. We've covered reference letters. We've covered show me the money, settlement funds, police clearances, certificates of qualification, those points. And then, of course, our Tied and True, our timely Time's Up series that covers a whole host of issues focused directly on all of you that are watching the time slip away and your ability to stay in Canada. So lots of good tips. So make sure that if you haven't subscribed, do that to those podcast episodes. And often those same podcast episodes can be found on our YouTube channel as well. All right, everyone. And remember, we're here for you. So if you want to retain us to help you with your applications, that's what we love most of all. But we're here to answer a few questions if you need through consultation process, and then we can determine if we're a good fit to help you all the way through your journey. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Alicia. Take care. And let's wrap it up with our fancy little song. I'll let it play for a little bit. Take care.
Snowy peaks and open skies, northern winds whisper goodbyes. Dreams take root where the maples grow, a land of promise where rivers flow. Welcome to the north, where the light shines so bright, chasing every dream beneath the stars tonight. Every step you take, a journey to belong, building futures here where hearts grow strong.